Okay, great. Well, hello everyone. Welcome to the HFNY Curriculum Community of Practice. Today we have special guests from Parents as Teachers, also known as PAT, Lindsay Shaw and Rochelle Cervantes. And they're going to be discussing their special curriculum for teen parents called PAT, Partnering with Teen Parents. The purchase of this curriculum, it's pretty inexpensive. I think it's 300 or 315, correct? Is that right?
Yep, 315 for the curriculum alone.
315 for the curriculum alone. Um, and you do not have to be certified in PAT Foundational 1 or 2 in order to purchase this curriculum and use it. I think it does also come with an optional training. Is that correct, Lindsay? The training is an in-person training or is virtual?
Yes, it's a 2-day in-person training, and actually Rochelle's going to talk about that a little bit, so I'll let her go into more detail later. But yes, it is
Oh,
a 2-day in-person um, training.
oh, great. Okay, thank you. Well, I've made you both co-hosts, so if you need to share your screen or anything, I think you should be able to. Let me know if you have any problems.
Great.
Welcome.
Thank you. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here. First, just thank you so much for having us here. We're always excited to talk about the work that we do and how we might continue to support those in the field to deepen your impact with families that you're working with. So my name is Lindsay Shaw. I'm the Director of Content and Curricula at Parents as Teachers National Center. And I am joined here with Rochelle, and I'll let Rochelle introduce herself.
Hi, everyone. I am Rochelle Cervantes, and I'm the trainer manager. So I do the work with the trainers and also support building out our trainings and making sure that we are consistent across the board with all of the training content and what we're delivering on ground and virtually. So that is my role. And so I'm glad to be here and talk a little bit more about what this training might look like should you choose to come.
Yes. So I'm going to start just by talking a little bit about the curriculum itself. And then I'm going to pass it to Rochelle, who's going to talk about the training and the training content in that. Because like it was mentioned, these two can come together. You can purchase the curricula just on its own. The training, though, really does add a depth of application of the information into your practice and goes beyond just what's in the curricula and thinking about the approach and kind of how you're working with teen parents. So I put on the screen here, you can see I kind of have two titles here. So this curricula was originally written in the late 90s. It has gone through several updates since then, but it really came about in the late 90s when there was kind of this surge in teen pregnancy that was happening. Since then, we also have evolved in our science, as you all know. And when we think about that adolescent brain or that developing brain, really we're talking about more than just those teenage years, right? And so parents who are entering parenthood in their early 20s, all the way up to their mid 20s, in a lot of ways, are really experiencing some of these same factors that are influencing teen or adolescent parents. So as we've evolved, the curricula is still titled Partnering with Teen Parents. And eventually that will go through an evolution, but we're kind of shifting the title of this training to Partnering with Young Parents to keep that growing body of science in mind. So what is it? So the curricula is, as you may have, some of you may have been here when we presented around interactions across abilities a couple of months ago. But this is a similar type of curricula coming out of Parents as Teachers National Center. So it is a research-backed, evidence-informed curricula that is designed to be either used with your current parents as teachers or other models that you might be using or other types of practice that you might be using. And then partnering with young parents, as we mentioned, is a revised and updated companion training for the curricula itself. So this curricula is about 1,100 pages, and that does not include the Spanish versions in that page count. So it's 1,100 pages of English content that, like I mentioned, is designed to be either used as a supplement to current parents as teachers' use of the curricula or as a standalone. We have seen this curricula used within teen pregnancy centers, within school programs for schools that are working with young parents, within Parents as Teachers programs, obviously, and within other models as well. In the curricula, similar to all of our others, there are parent educator resources, which in this curricula are called professional resources. So we're not just speaking to parent educators, but professional resources, parent handouts, parent-facing material, and activity pages for families as well. What is a little bit unique to this curricula is that it also recognizes the value of group learning and how much young families and young parents operate within groups. So to recognize that, we also include in this several plans for group connections. So those groups that are already filled out, they can be picked up and implemented without having to create your own group connection plans. Not to say you can't in addition to those, but there are some there to get you started. And in addition, there are some plans for home visits that are already structured as well. So thinking about how you might be using this curricula, it kind of sets you up to get started in both of those contexts, either in the one-on-one visit or within that group setting. When you purchase this curricula, you will get all of the parent-facing resources. So that includes activity pages and parent handouts in Spanish and English. So the professional resources are just in English, but all of those family-facing resources are available in English and Spanish with the purchase of this curricula. And you can see here, I'll take you into the table of contents in a moment, but you can see that it's not following the exact same structure as the Parents as Teachers curricula. If you are used to that, some of the sections are a little different, while maintaining kind of that same core principles around the content. So what makes this curriculum unique from the others that Parents as Teachers has developed is really this intense focus on the dual development of the parent and the child. So building into this, the support that the parent educator is thinking about, this still developing young brain is going through all sorts of things, while they're also trying to support the developing brain of their child, right? And that's a very different scenario than a parent in their mid-30s who is supporting their child's development. So you can see an example of a professional resource here that's called Amazing Brains, 2 works in progress, right? So talking about that parallel process of the brain development across both generations. And then a parent handout, right? Your teenage brain, still under construction, right? So we're talking about their own brain development with adolescent parents and helping them think about how that impacts where they're at, decisions they're making as parents, how that influences their child's development, and how all those things are integrated. This curriculum also has many resources that acknowledge and support the complex caregiving relationships that young parents are finding themselves in. So again, as what may have been in the past is that teen parents were living with their parents, but once they, hit their early 20s, they're kind of on their own. We know that shifted a lot too. Many young parents, whether they're in their teenage years or early 20s, are living in multi-generational homes. And that brings up complex caregiving relationships. So how are teens and young parents supporting themselves? Well, also, how are we talking about grandparents' role and how different that might be with a younger parent than it might be with an older parent, or if they're living together versus not. It also talks about the complex co-parenting relationships that are happening within these young relationships. So when parents are not living together, when there are multiple multi-generational households raising a grandchild, what does that look like? How are those boundaries communicated? So there's a lot of resources to support the professional in thinking about that, but also to support young parents in having those conversations. What do we need to be thinking about with our parents and how they're communicating to our child, and splitting that generational divide? This curriculum also, in addition to the Strengthening Families protective factors, integrates the Youth Thrive protective factors. So there's some additional protective factors unique to the adolescent or young brain within this curriculum. And so before we get into training, I'm actually going to take you into the curriculum really quick, just so I can show you what it looks like. So this is, when you purchase this curricula, it is a PDF. So it's a PDF, a downloadable PDF. There's a separate PDF for the Spanish files. They're not integrated in this current platform or in this current version. We are hoping in the future that we're creating a version in which those are integrated, but there's a table of contents that is navigable in both of these. So I'm just going to scroll down here for a moment. Sorry to make you dizzy. This begins with a how to use the curriculum. So there are instructions if you're not purchasing the training, again, which we would encourage you to do so, but is not necessary. There are supports in the beginning of this curricula to think about how you might utilize this within your different roles. And then as we get to the table of contents, sorry, this is tiny here. But you can really see how this curricula is structured around things like there's a lot of journaling happening. There's a lot of reflection. A lot of the handouts are very interactive. So it's less about giving information to families. It's in a flat one-dimensional sheet and more about the conversations that teens are having. There's a lot of skill development. We know that there's a lot of skill development happening both, again, for the young parent as well as them supporting their child in ways that look different than in older parents. You will see the development-centered parenting. So those developmental topics are all still there. There's also these additional sections. Let's go down here. The parent-child interaction, supporting, so a bunch of activity pages as well. So you can see kind of what's in here. Within family well-being, that emphasis on, again, the co-parent, multi-generational households as well. And then thinking about childcare and the unique needs of young parents as they're going to school or beginning their careers. What does that look like in terms of childcare and support and continuing their education in places in which they might need? So that is an overview of the curricula. Are there any questions before I pass it to Rochelle to talk about the training? All right, Rochelle.
All right. Well, Lindsay gave us a nice overview of the curriculum, and now I want to talk a little bit about what the training might look like should you choose to schedule or be part of partnering with young parents training. So she mentioned the history a little bit, moving from the term partnering with teens to partnering with young parents. And part of the rationale there is to really be thinking about the evolving science, neuroscience around brain development in the ages 12 through 25. So when you're working through this training, you'll notice that the focus is really around supporting parents ages 12 to 25 years of age or through 25. You'll also notice that in addition to a little bit deeper conversations are going to be occurring in training that talk about the neuroscience and explain that a little bit more. We also talk about the studies and the research that is present now, that we are learning much more about the impact of early childhood experiences, showing the trauma and abuse. You know, we are very familiar with ACEs and some of the impact of trauma and abuse in our work in the lives of young people. But we're also learning in this training the positive experience that can help to heal that. So it's really pretty amazing information around brain science and the trauma work that is going on to support this age group. Also, you'll be learning more about the family systems theory and how to apply that in your conversations with families. A lot of research has come through with that content too. We before used to really work with teens. We used to work directly with moms or dads who were found themselves in a situation where they were pregnant, got kicked out, those kind of things. But the focus was really working with the teen, the young person. And now we're learning how important it is to consider the family system and whatever that might look like. It could mean a biological family, or it could even be the family system in foster care. Whatever system that is, it's so important to incorporate that. And this training does do some of that work with the participants. We also focus on building youth thrive protective factors. And we can switch to the next slide, Lindsay. The youth protective factors, Lindsay mentioned, they are in the curriculum, but in the training itself, we really go into this work and consider what those protective factors are. And we work on case studies and concepts on how to build those with this age group, 12 to 25. So you've heard of protective factors in your work, or even some of the ACEs research. The youth protective factors are more specific to the age group. Youth resilience is one. Just thinking about what are some of the issues youth are facing, managing stress, being part of a social network, the technology. There's so many variables that are in the life of our youth right now. And so we cover youth resilience. We talk about that in training. We also consider how do we navigate that and have those conversations. We talk about social connections in the training, which is another youth thrive protective factor. And in this one, we're really thinking about what the social network and how quickly it changes for a person that is in this age group. So we think about how are we building trusting relationships? How are we navigating systems? What are those social connections? And also practice some strategies on helping our youth build those. We also go into the knowledge of adolescent development, and also the youth understanding that they too are developing, and talking about that very openly in training. And how do we have those tough conversations? We talk about dual development. The parent is developing alongside their child. And so we talk about some of those real things that are happening with this age group: physical and emotional changes, puberty, culture, societal norms. What are all the things that are going on developmentally with our youth during this age group, and having real conversations with them within their personal visit. So we do incorporate some strategies for parent educators to practice that. We talk about concrete supports in times of need, which is another protective factor that is really, really a focus for this age group, because sometimes a youth might find themselves in a situation where they're either rejected by their family or in foster care, or it's a different dynamic in terms of support, and they are not of age to have a job, or there's different dynamics that you have to work through. So we do navigate some of those scenarios as well in training, so that we are preparing our parent educators to think about those type of situations. And then just really thinking about the cognitive and social competency of this age, and how it is developing. There's just physiological things that are going on within the body of a youth that make this really a challenge for a parent educator. So we talk through what that might look like, that emotional development that's occurring. So the protective factors and youth thrive factors, the work that we're really featuring is from the Center of Study of Social Policy. It's where we learned about our protective factors, the guidance around that. and the Youth Thrive fall right under that. So it is another specialized set just for our youth in this age group. We can go to the next slide. So the purpose of the training, we mentioned, the way that the curriculum is structured is even specialized to think about some of these special topics or age group specific issues. And one of the big ones is in this training, we would introduce the concept of co-development and the aspects of young parenthood. And so this really refers to understanding that both the young parent and the child are developing simultaneously. So when you come to the training, we really hit those topics, like how do you have those conversations? How do you work through those experiences and choices that the youth are being faced with, their own developmental phases and things that they're thinking about as a young person, and then what their child and baby's needs are. We are also thinking about co-developing and how we focus on reciprocal nature of the relationship. How does the parent and the child learn and kind of work through that together within the system that they live in? So that's one of the big focuses of the training. We also explore techniques that promote growth and development for both. So this is practical strategies that we cover in training for you to think about. How do you help a young person who is having a hard time understanding their baby's development, and how do you work through those? We give real life strategies. We also talk about techniques that could help with parenting education. We talk about the resources. We go into the curriculum in depth to navigate that and help with ideas to support that learning. We also talk about the actual curriculum itself. So we'll go into the curriculum and look at the structure, look how it's laid out. So there's a little bit more guided practice on how to navigate that and use that in real visit. We also talk about in training the support for meaningful relationship building and how to make those social connections. So there's some techniques to support relationship building, ideas on activities, things of that nature. And then lastly, we talk about examining the influence of professional and community beliefs on adolescence and emerging development. So in this section, we really spend some time in training talking about how we're thinking about young parents as a culture, as society, as well as the values that we have as professionals. So professionals working with young people like teachers, social workers, healthcare providers, and parent educators. We might have our own belief system. So we explore that in training and think about how that might impact our work. We also talk about some of the community beliefs, attitudes towards teenagers or teenagers who are pregnant, the educational experience for a teen who is going through pregnancy while in high school. Those are all things that we talk about. What does that look like, and how might that be perceived, not only by the community, but by the teen themselves? And the training itself also explores how the participants can help better understand themselves in the broader context in which they're working with families and within their own community. And then just overall goals. While we're in training, we're really thinking about how do you do service delivery? How do you create a visit that's meaningful? How do we incorporate some of these protective factors that we want to build and have good, solid engagement with a young parent who might be in high school, who might be in foster care, who might be struggling with some of the community ideas about them. And so we work on using the curriculum to navigate and create real plans. In training, we explore scenarios that really think about those developmental stages. So we have several different types of scenarios that you would practice in training. We also talk about different phases of youth. So what that range of development between 12 and 25. And so we explore those scenarios at different age ranges so that you have some practice when you leave training. And then we also talk a lot about the challenging and changing family systems and how that navigating that and exploring that. There's role play scenarios. There is practice at individual work, and there's also group work that we do to explore how you might approach this in your work. And then when you walk away from training, the Partnering with Young Parents training, we're hoping that you have a better understanding of the developmental characteristics and life skills that young parents have or may not quite have yet. And then also thinking about that changing mindset of this population and how we do service delivery, how our mindsets shape parenting behaviors and decision making, not only as service providers, but the community and people that are working with our youth. And then we also hope that you walk away with some practice and ideas about your role, the role of the community, and how we might facilitate services for families in this age group. That's quite a bit. It's very exciting, I have to say. It's a very exciting and engaging training. There's a lot of practice, a lot of people give feedback around how those scenarios help prepare and really think about how to serve this age group. So hope you're interested, and there's definitely, you can reach out to us if you have questions or are interested in scheduling to attend. There's a lot of great work around this being done right now and with the latest research to make sure that you feel confident and comfortable working with our young parents.
And I just dropped a couple of links in the chat, or a couple of bit of information in the chat. So if you're interested in scheduling a training, because these are in-person trainings, they're place-based. So we would ask that our training team would work with you to find a group of folks in your area who are interested. There is a minimum, I believe, of 16 people needed to have a training held. So with that, it would be $395 per person, and then there will be additional costs for the hosting of the training. So but we do try to come as close as possible to organizations. We would also work with you if there are several in the same vicinity to try and match those up so that organizations can share that to get to the 16. The second, the link that I dropped in here also is our website with more information. And on this website, if you click on that link, there is a sample curricula there as well. Excuse me. So you can download the table of contents, some of the parent handouts, parent or professional resources to get a good sense of what is within the curriculum. I see Karen, you have your hand raised.
I just didn't feel like typing. In the past, I would train in the parent teachers.
Oh, Karen, we can't hear you.
If you're able to, Karen, if you might just type your question in the chat. We can't hear you, but you would be able to see it there.
While we're waiting for Karen, I know I wanted to ask a question. I know one thing that staff often say that's really important for them about trainings is the provision of real life examples. And I was wondering if you could talk to me a little bit about, maybe give an example of one of your case studies for everybody to hear about.
Sure.
In the training.
Absolutely. We currently have, I mean, there's a variety of them that are included in the training. And one of the experiences that we offer in training is carrying out what we would call a role play of a scenario where a parent finds a young person finds themselves, in a situation where they're pregnant, they're still in high school, and are afraid to tell their parent. So their mother, father, or family member. And so they go through the experience of pregnancy without prenatal care. They do not reach out for support. And so we go through this scenario in different aspects, like different levels of exploration. So we think about, okay, what would be the first approach? How would we, when we find out, when the person reaches out, how do we then move forward with services? So a scenario like that, where that is very common, where the young person has waited a very long time to tell somebody. That's one of the ones that we work through the entire training. We also think about what family resources are offered, and we build an actual plan by the time we get through this whole scenario. So that's one example, but we have several. We have some that are with the young person in high school, and then we have some scenarios that are also young parents who are maybe in college or working, that are 19, 20, and needing to figure and navigate supports for their pregnancy.
Great, thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
I see Karen has left her question in the chat. Is there a time limit how long the curriculum is available after you are trained? In the past, I was certified in PAT, but it became expensive for the program to have to continue to get recertified.
Yeah, that's a great question. So this curricula is separate from foundational. So our foundational curriculum access is based on an annual subscription. This is not. So you do not have to be certified in Parents as Teachers or have a foundational subscription in order to purchase this curricula. It can be somebody who is coming from any other service and might just want these resources. So when you purchase this curricula, it is a digital download. So it's a PDF you can download. I don't know if there is a time limit on how long it stays in your account, but I don't believe so. But once you've purchased it, it is yours. And so if it were to time out, you could reach back out and say, I need to re-download this. And because we can track that you've purchased it, we would be able to put it back on your account if it were to ever drop off. But no, there's no time limit. It's a one-time purchase, and then you have access to it for the entirety of your needs.
Great, thank you so much. Does anyone else have questions for Lindsay or Rochelle? Or comments about your experience working with teen or young parents? Quiet group today.
Well, if there are questions, I put both Rochelle and I's email in the chat as well. Please do not hesitate to reach out to us. We are always happy to answer via email or hop on a call if you need some more explanation of whatever is going on. But we hope that this was some helpful insight for you on another one of our curricula that is offered. And yeah, we love this curriculum. I think I can speak for Rochelle and I both. That's kind of where both of us come from in our work with families. But it really is quite it's unique in a lot of ways. Again, following many of the same principles as others, but it is unique in many ways to really specifically support families who are in this particular stage of life.
Oh, Wendy just added a question in the chat. Can an agency use it with one subscription, or does it have to be an individual person's curriculum?
So officially, it's an individual subscription. It's an individual purchase. If you are purchasing with a training, it is per individual. I'll say that. Officially, it's an individual purchase. We would prefer that every individual has it purchased within theirs, but we also know that sometimes doesn't happen.
Thank you. Does anyone else have questions before we end? Oh, Oh, Karen Green said that she loved the curriculum when she was certified in it. Oh, that's good. Yeah, I know Parents as Teachers is very popular. We recently did a survey of HFNY staff, and Parents as Teachers was a very popular curriculum.
We love to hear it. We love to hear it. And I think one of the again, as we have kind of evolved in our thinking, young parents are many of the parents we're serving, right? So much of this information, I think we're starting to think about how does this, how are we merging these things together? Because the reality is many families could benefit from the information that is within this curricula. And again, while it is originally marketed as a teen curricula, we're evolving that to young parents. And we also know that our definition of young parent and families who are in these same circumstances is continuing to evolve as economic factors play in, and other things as young parents are living in similar circumstances for much longer. So I will say it is information that is applicable across much more than the adolescent or teenage years with parents.
I think one of the other things I just wanted to add is all of the newest research around how our brains develop and what our families need, and the way that we as providers are interacting with our families is so helpful. That's I would say one of the greatest pieces in terms of the training itself, is understanding that and being able to kind of think about us as providers and how we approach the population that we're serving. So really love that piece of it. And I think this training does such a great job of getting us to think about ourselves as providers and how we might approach service delivery. So really helpful. But yeah, hope you guys are interested, and we see you soon at one of our trainings.
Thank you. Oh, there's another question in this chat from Stacy Wiswer. How often is the curriculum updated? Would we need to purchase the update, or is it automatically updated since it's online only?
Yeah, so it actually is a PDF download, so it's not automatically updated, but I will say that this is not updated nearly as frequently as our others. That's just kind of the nature of our supplemental curricula. It has not been updated in quite some time. We don't have it slated to be updated in the near future. So in that, I mean like the next couple of years. So it is, once you have it, you have it. But right now, it has been this version for several years now and is likely to stay the same for at least the next couple of years.
Thank you so much. Any other questions? Well, thank you, Lindsay and Rochelle, so much. It was an excellent presentation, very, very interesting. And I didn't know that this curriculum was for young parents all the way up to age 25. So that's good. That's good information to know.
Thank you so much.
Thank you all for your time.
Okay.